Hi everyone, this is Eden of Light Cycle Astrology back again with another Mantic Monday episode. Today we're doing episode number 50, which is going to be about the Sun square Jupiter aspect that forms this week in the sky alongside of a Venus trine Jupiter aspect. So we got some pretty positive astrology that is coming through for us in this next week ahead. Probably one of the best weeks of the year, astrologically speaking, in my opinion. And so I have 10 narratives that may be coming up, or you may notice that is in relation to some of this good astrology that's coming through for us this week. We'll get to those in a minute. Before we do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit notifications so you don't miss any videos. Leave some comments for me, and you can always find me at lightcycleastrology.com if you want to check out readings that I offer. Okay, well, let's pull up the real-time clock and take a look at the timing of some of the astrology coming through. So it's a pretty big week. Not only do we have Mercury entering the sign of exaltation on Monday here, which is a positive thing just all on its own. And I wish we could spend some time talking about that. I wish I had more time to make a video every day or every time something significant happened in the sky. That would be my ideal, but right now I just don't have the time to do that. But a lot of positive things are rolling in this week for sure. We have Mercury entering the sign of Virgo, the place where it was said to be in one of its own homes or domiciles, and the sign that is also Mercury's exaltation sign. So of course, exaltation is a big improvement for Mercury. Mercury went through the retrograde and went out of Virgo back into Leo some time ago and has been wrapping up that retrograde in Leo, and then has come forward now to re-enter the sign of exaltation. Now, one caveat to Mercury's re-entrance into Virgo is that even though Mercury moves into this sign, one interesting detail for the week is that Mercury will soon be traveling under the beams of the sun, or in other words, Mercury will be losing visibility in the sky. So this week also features a Mercury that is moving into a very good dignity sign based wise, but is interestingly enough also getting closer to the sun, catching up to the sun in such a way that if you were actually to go outside and try to, track Mercury's movements every day, like the ancient astrologers were doing, with good weather and all of that, you would soon not be able to see the starlight reflected off of Mercury from the sun because it's just too close and there's too much light in the sky. So ancient astrologers did pay attention to these transitions of planets that were moving under the beams of the sun and losing visibility because they thought that could represent a planet's symbolic weakening, or that the planet losing its own autonomous light, let's say, is this concept that reflects a kind of weakening or a kind of somehow moving into a place where it's not as powerful. So interesting that Mercury moves into a very dignified place where it's very capable to express its own nature, being in its own sign, and also is lifted up into exaltation, a dignity category for any planet that represents that it's somehow riding on high, or at least it's moving up to some kind of height in importance. So that's really interesting that we have this kind of contrast between a planet that is moving into a very capable, important role, but one that is also moving into more secrecy or is becoming weaker or something symbolic like that. So very interesting position for Mercury. But overall, I think, could look to Mercury as improving. So mercurial kinds of archetypal features, communication, rationality or mental capabilities, the ability to articulate or sort of understand something or learn something or teach something or plan something, all of those mercurial kinds of things alongside of things perhaps like the exchange of things in markets or the economy or money matters or anything along those lines that has to do with Mercury archetypally speaking, should be improving, but simultaneously also kind of traveling under the radar and also maybe struggling a little bit with how much effectiveness or power all at the same time. So that's pretty interesting. Now, that's not even really what we're talking about today, but that's important for time going forward this week for sure. Now, on Tuesday, the sun begins to apply to square Jupiter. Now, this aspect really is what we are focusing on this Mantic Monday episode, alongside of the Venus trine Jupiter aspect that is also forming. But you get a lot of energy directed at Jupiter this week. Now, one very key and interesting thing to note is that Jupiter is in a Mercury ruled sign there in Gemini, and the sun is also in a Mercury ruled sign in Virgo, and is co-present with Mercury now entering that sign. So the sun is co-present with his sign ruler or host that is in pretty good dignity. And so all of this action is happening in this Mercury sphere, which is really interesting. We have Jupiter in an air sign, very mental and cerebral, if you will. And we have Virgo being an earth sign, but we also have the earth sign that is somehow connected to the rational archetype of Mercury being the sign ruler of Virgo. So you get a sense of a really rational based kind of intelligent, thought-provoking or mental kind of sphere that this aspect is forming within. So I would expect that when we get into the narratives that are about this sun square Jupiter, keep in mind that this may be happening on the delicate waves of thought or intuition or something like that, like ideas are percolating up. Now, there's a practical sense in which maybe these ideas can take form or shape because the sun and Mercury are in this earth place that it is aspecting back to Jupiter. But or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe Jupiter is giving the ideas and the sun will act in a practical way on them. But however it is, it's a very kind of airy, earthy, cerebral, mental, kind of communicative place that things and ideas and communications may be reflected by the astrology with, that we are inspired to act or come up with ideas on certain matters in our lives or something like that. It's a very interesting place that this square is taking place in. So that is on Tuesday. Now, if we go forward to Thursday this week, a bunch of things happen on Thursday. First, we get the culmination or the perfection of the square between the sun and Jupiter on Thursday. But we also have Venus beginning to apply to trine to Jupiter, which is another big aspect of the week that we are going to talk about here in a moment. And we also have this is the day where Mercury moves under the beams or the rays of the sun and becomes invisible or loses visibility. So that's all on Thursday. So I feel like Thursday this week is really kind of the powerful day of the week, astrologically speaking, because all of these things sort of coalesce together here. But let's not leave Sunday out. On Sunday, we are going to get a pretty nice day, I think, because we have Venus perfecting its trine to Jupiter. And then we also have the moon over here in Aquarius, another air sign. So the moon is going to be walking through just after the precise perfection between Jupiter and Venus. The moon will actually be walking through. Look, the moon's at 17 degrees as of about noontime or so in London. And then if we just go forward by hours here, watch this. The moon will actually walk through a trine that it forms between Jupiter and Venus. So we have all of the air temples, all of the air signs are really just being connected in this really positive trine or grand trine feature of the week that sort of closes out our week here. Now, of course, this energy between all of these planets is going to continue on into the next week. So it's not that the week closes and everything shuts down with the good astrology. Of course, it's going to continue on into next week, but the astrology really peaks out, I think, this week in terms of the Sun square Jupiter and the Venus trine Jupiter. But we still have Mercury in exaltation, co-present with the Sun. We have the Moon going through. So there's a lot of good things this week. Let's get into the archetypal narratives to watch for, and we'll get rid of the clock here. Okay, so archetypal narratives to watch for this week. I'm going to go through these. There's about 10 of them, and they're really not in a particular order. They're just kind of when I think of each one and write it down. But one of the most common features of Sun square Jupiter is going to be some kind of success. Some kind of success either in becoming wiser. This can just be where all of a sudden the Sun represents illumination and Jupiter represents wisdom, and the two come together, and somehow in some area you just become wiser somehow. And it's almost like that the fruit of wiseness just becomes ripe in some way about something. But it can also be success in career. It could be success in a skill that you're working on. It could be success in some kind of achievement that you've been working on, like a thesis or an accreditation towards something, a promotion at work, a raise. It can also be when you're recognized for your talents or achievements by like a boss or a higher up or something like that. So definitely one of the things that's really nice about Sun square Jupiter archetypal narratives is that they often reflect a time where some kind of notch or success is achieved in some area of our lives, right? And of course, that's a very positive thing. So I would look for that as being something that comes along this week. Could be big, could be small, but in some way or another, it feels like there's real momentum achieved on some level here. Okay, number 2 is going to be leadership and morality. Both of these planets together, we have the Sun, which is always representing leadership in some way, or like the authority figure or the boss or the president. But if you think about the Sun, of course, the Sun is the planet that is at the center of the solar system that all other planets are revolving around. So the Sun, archetypally speaking, connects with all of the things that surround leadership or bosses or important people, even famous people, something like that. And then when you combine that with Jupiter, a planet that is connected with morality, virtue, truth, justice, order, cohesion, law, religion, you get the sense that these two archetypal fields are sort of being paired together somehow. Now, this is by square, so there's an interesting dynamic with that. But for example, we have doing the right thing, sort of being your own leader and saying, I'm going to be virtuous, I'm going to be moral, I'm going to do the right thing, take the high road, kind of just feeling like that is what's needed at the moment is a common narrative that can come along with this. Also, you may notice that there could be tension with a headstrong person that has a different value or ethical principles than you. That's something that you can come into tension with, where we see the square coming up, or like a boss at work, or like an authority figure, even just being pulled over by the police in the morning on your way to work because you're speeding, and somehow you feel like that's okay for you to do, and the cop says not so okay. And there can be that tension or that clash with an authority figure because there's a feeling of justification. So, or it can be about getting into a principled difference with somebody, and there's like this headstrongness, and maybe this person even carries some weight or authority, like a parent or something like that. So there can be in Sun square Jupiter narratives that come along that have that tension with somebody that's important, with a boss, an authority figure, a parent or father or something like that. And there's kind of a clash of principles or ethics or morality that sort of needs to be worked out. And the tension is kind of palpable with that. But this can also be where people act virtuous or puritanical. So again, kind of coming back to this moment where we feel as though it's necessary somehow to do the right thing, but it can be overdone, and self-righteousness or virtuousness or being puritanical, better than, holier than, those sometimes can be sides to this aspect that we overdo. It's easy to overdo them. And also you can have things like biting off more than you can handle, or, that you can chew, taking the leadership role on something that is, that you'll find out down the road maybe is just too much to do. It's just, wow, I don't know, why did I take this on? But sort of feeling at the time that this aspect perfects, that it's like all of a sudden I can do it. I can do anything. I've got this in the bag. I'm the right person for the job. Yeah, sign me up. That kind of taking the leadership and feeling like Superman, able to kind of handle anything, handle all of the pieces. Especially this is happening between these two Mercury ruled signs. So there can be this kind of like, I'm the smartest guy in the room kind of thing. Of course I can do it. Give me the books. I'll sort it out right now. And then finding out down the road that this is a much bigger project than you anticipated, and it's not so easy to look after or something like that. So that can also be a part of this. Okay, narrative number 3 is going to be the sun representing things that are important or central, and then Jupiter broadly representing the archetype of lessons or learning. This can also be a very common narrative that comes along with Sun square Jupiter. So you can have the sun representing kind of an illumination, right? The sun, the source of light in the solar system, of course, is it's illuminating the shadows of anything that it contacts, right? It's turning on the light switch in the morning in your bedroom so you can see where everything is. It's illuminating the places that sometimes are in the dark or something like that. So you have this this archetypal quality of illumination coming in and having a contact with all kinds of things about knowledge, wisdom, truth. Jupiter being connected with the holy man or the religious person, the priest, the adherent, the guru, the professor, so Jupiter usually has a connection with wisdom, knowledge, but also people that are wise or knowledgeable somehow. So one thing that can happen, just broadly speaking, is that we have kind of we become illuminated about what we know, what we don't know. And this can also have kind of like a humbling quality to it, Well, and then there's a shadow side to this, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But oftentimes, Sun Jupiter can be either very humbling. It's sort of like you understand your place in the big and like endless eternal universe, and it's like, wow, I'm so small, and there's like a sense of peace that can come along with that, where you just have this understanding or this illumination of humility. Now it can go the other way too, though, especially in the square aspect, where you can become arrogant. That's also part of this. But one way that this can be reflective is just feeling humble, understanding, or somehow becoming illuminated or wise to your place in the universe or something like that. You can also become wiser about life in a particular, like life teaches you a particular lesson. That's very common with these two planets coming together, and then of course the outcome is that somehow it's like, oh, don't do that again, right? Now I'm a little bit, what's this phrase? I'm no worse for wear, but a little bit wiser or something. I think I messed that up, but you guys know what I'm talking about. It's when there's a particular lesson that comes along that maybe is a little bit rough at first, but makes us more capable or more wise down the road and is giving us the tools to not make the same mistake twice or something like that, right? But we can also have meeting an actual important teacher, somebody that comes along that is perhaps a spiritual, religious, or professional mentor or teacher, or somebody that is, just broadly speaking, somebody that is sort of standing in our corner as an advocate. The 11th house was said to be where Jupiter had his joy in the house scheme, which is the place of allies and mentors and teachers. So just broadly speaking, somebody coming along that is very important, like an important or illustrious teacher, even if they don't have like a legitimate title, like I'm like professor or doctor or whatever, even if they're just a regular person that carries a lot of wisdom that somehow adds knowledge or wisdom to your understanding of things at this time, would be kind of in this vein of Sun Jupiter. But yeah, meeting an important mentor, teacher, also taking up the call to be a teacher yourself is something that can happen with Sun square Jupiter. It's the time where we take action. That square sort of drives us into kind of a moment of crisis where we say, I'm going to do it. Darn it. I'm going to pull the trigger on, taking this position or getting this job or speaking up and telling this person what I know. Can also be a part of this. Just acting as that wiser person to somebody else is also something that you can see with Sun square Jupiter. And we could also get things like entering into a study, a curriculum, apprenticeship, mentorship, religious practice, etc. Any kind of formal training where we're increasing our knowledge or growing our wisdom or understanding or taking on spiritual advancement or something like that. So that is number 3. Number 4 is going to be inflated pridefulness. This is more a pitfall. Every aspect will have its easy things and its more difficult or challenging things. Even good aspects will tend to have some of these things. But you get, of course, we all know that Jupiter is related to things of like expansion, right? It's sort of the key word that everybody knows about Jupiter is expansion. But you can also imagine the inflation of pride, right? The sun is connected with a kind of importance or important stature or pridefulness. So this is a transit where either we can fall victim ourselves to being like the quintessential Mr. Know-it-all, especially because this is happening in Mercury ruled signs. So there might be this connection with what we know and feeling as though I know it all. I know the truth. I have a handle on what's really happening. I just know everything about everything, and let me tell you about it, which of course can come off prideful, arrogant, self-righteous. We can virtue signal. We can think that we're the best at something. We can think that we can fall into the trap of feeling better than other people, even being more attractive with Venus in the mix here. In the Venus trine Jupiter that is forming in the sky the same week. It could be that arrogant self, what would you say, aggrandizement that says like, well, I'm better than this, or I'm better than you, or I'm somehow more important, or I'm just more attractive. Anything that is even kind of real simple, like just feeling like somehow you're better in some way, on some level than somebody else. That can be something that we encounter from other people. We can be on the receiving end of that, or it can be something that can carry us away into overpride or something like that. So that is one pitfall of Sun square Jupiter to watch out for, that you also might run into, is just that sense of being the Mr. Know-it-all or the pridefulness. No, it doesn't have to be the worst case scenario and you sabotage everybody's impression of you and you can't come back from it. But, it's just kind of a time where it's a little bit easier to sort of be high on your own supply, or just you're riding high in some way. And sometimes with, of course, pridefulness, there is the fall before the pride, or in this case, I think the fall after the pride. So I wouldn't say it's the biggest thing that is going to come for most of us, or be reflected in the astrology this week, that we're all going to suffer some fall pride, but it can definitely show up if we get carried away by it. So it's just something to watch out for. Okay, number 5 is going to be clean and orderly. This is, for me, this is an interesting one because Venus is connected with beauty, and by virtue of beauty, usually something has to be clean. Jupiter is connected with a kind of order, even like a cosmic order or a sense of cohesion, something that is bringing things together. Why is Jupiter connected with order? Well, it has long been connected with things like law and religion and faith and trust and hope and enthusiasm and all of these positive virtues that tend to hold like larger organizational society together, right? If you think about law is something that gives us it's the code that is supposed to be accessible by anybody to know what is allowed by the society and what is not permitted by the society, right? So you think about justice and law and order kind of when you think about Jupiter. And so this makes me think in like our mundane, in a mundane sense, or in like our personal lives, what are narratives that come along right now where we want to clean something up and make it orderly or organized or bring some kind of cohesion or order to something? Now, of course, there are some interesting ideas with this in terms of examples. It can be anything from taking on a really big cleaning project. Like me, I have been working on this house and everything is beginning to really weigh on me, that there's so much chaos with the mess that I've created because I'm working and I don't always put tools back, or, I'm making a mess. And after a year plus of this, there really isn't many places on my property that don't need some attention. I did clean up the carport. That is looking pretty nice right now. But the workbench, for me to go forward, doing a particular thing, I'm learning how to use a planer so I can make this door for my son's bedroom. And I really need the workbench, but there's so much stuff on the workbench. And up until now, it's just seemed like really daunting to have to go like, okay, you just got to take the time and clean everything up, wipe it down, put everything where it goes. And so this sense of like, is this going to be the week we're called to tackle that really big, Jupiter, that big project where we have to clean and organize and put things back and all of that. But it could also sort of come up in things like entering a health regimen, right, where we're cleaning up our bodies. Or it could be cleaning up our acts spiritually, where we do something spiritual for ourselves, whether that's connecting with nature, getting out more in nature, or whatever it is. But think of themes or narratives around cleaning something up and making it orderly. That's a real big, that is a real big theme or narrative that could come along with Venus trine Jupiter. So we are getting into the Venus trine Jupiter aspect narratives to watch for with this one. Okay, number 6 is going to be another Venus trine Jupiter, where one of the, I write these flashcards. It's almost like a journal that I keep, but I keep it on flashcards and I keep them with the aspects. So I'll make this video about these two aspects, but during the week, what I'll do is I'll actually write down the experiences that I have and see if they somehow relate or reflect the astrology that's happening at the time, right? And that helps me go back. And I also reference what happened the last time that same aspect came around, even if it was in different signs or whatever. One of the things that I've noticed, not only with myself, but with other people during Venus trine Jupiter aspects, whether that's Venus behind Jupiter in zodiacal order or Jupiter behind Venus in zodiacal order, whichever way this alignment is set up, it seems like one of the most obvious things is just fun. It just seems like a time where you have both benefics coming together by the most positive aspect. In astrology writ large, Venus trine Jupiter, Jupiter trine Venus is just about as good as it gets. You'd be hard pressed to come up with pairing two planets together in a specific alignment or aspect that isn't better than this. It really doesn't it really doesn't get better than this. And both planets are kind of happy, fun, jovial, social, right? So there's this way in which you can just simply be having fun with other people. It's really common. Whoever you're with, sometimes it even doesn't matter. It can be people that you normally wouldn't even think that are going to be fun to be around. Like, the person at work that you don't usually talk to all that much, or the person at the gas station, you're just trying to get in and get out. If you've seen, what's that movie? One of my favorite movies. It is, I don't know the actor's name, but I think is it About Time? I think it's About Time. I love this movie. If you guys seen this movie, you'll probably resonate with me loving this movie, because you're probably watching the channel because you sort of have similar perspectives on things. And if you've seen this movie, you probably know what I'm talking about. But this is a beautiful, beautiful movie. It's very Venus trine Jupiter kind of a movie. And sort of the moral lesson, the Jupiterian moral lesson about beauty, Venus trine Jupiter, is that if you could take the time or appreciate or not take for granted the mundane moments of your life, especially as we experience them with other people, right? Especially the people that we love. But even in the movie, it's about the moments we have with people that are very, non-integral to our lives, that are very easy to just overlook, take for granted, or, not give energy to something that we don't feel is an important person around us or something like that, which is very easy to do, especially in modernity today, where, our lives are so freaking busy, right? That it's nobody has time to smell the roses and be nice to the courtesy clerk, right? This can be an aspect, Venus trine Jupiter, where we don't behave like that, where we treat people around us really nicely, and we end up having a good time for doing that, or they can be like that towards us. But it can also be, of course, with anything, social cohesion, coming together. It can be having fun with pretty much anybody. Now, the one caveat to this, with the sun squaring Jupiter all at the same time, the one thing we want to watch out for is that while we're socializing with others and having fun with others, we will maybe run into some ethical differences that bring that tension of the square between the sun and Jupiter. So we have to watch out for that. But just generally having social intelligence to soothe, entertain, simply be in the mood to be social or socially engaging, right? A lot of the times, like I can relate with not feeling social a lot of the time. And for me, it's like a switch. Sometimes I'm hugely social, and I have big parties and at my place, and I'll invite everybody I can think of, and it's a lot of fun, and I love doing it. And other times, I don't even want to, I just want to be all on my own. This is not one of those times. This is definitely most likely a time Venus trine Jupiter where you're in that social mode and you want to be. Now, I know some people, they just always want to be, but I can't relate to that. But anyway, just being in the mood to be social, attending weddings, parties, celebrations, especially if it is about some kind of achievement, right? Like having like going to a weekend work party that celebrates, I don't know, a year in business, and everybody gets together and has cake or something like that, because of that whole Sun square Jupiter aspect that is happening at the same time, and about achievement sort of being in the mix in social cohesion. It wouldn't surprise me if there are narratives that are like, we're getting together with people, but it's under the auspices of some kind of group achievement or success or something like that, right? So that's number 6, fun, social cohesion, parties. Oh, one thing that I did want to mention, the having social intelligence to soothe or entertain or be socially engaging. Sometimes you have this feeling like your brain just understands how to be social. That can also be a part of this, where you just know how to be a little more charming, like your best charming self. That can be something that comes in too. So that is number 6. Okay, moving right along. Number 7 out of 10 here. Fairness and justice. Venus is, especially in the sign of Libra, right, is going to be much more the Venus that is concerned with the fairness and the justice, just all on its own. If we were just talking about Venus and Libra, we're talking about fairness and justice, right? We're talking about the place where Saturn is exalted and the sun is in its depression. Why is the sun depressed in Libra? Well, that's because at this time of the year, the sun moves into the dark half of the year, and the sun is a planet of light. So the sun is fallen into darkness and is, categorized by the ancient astrologers as being kind of, out of power, or somehow fallen down, right? And darkness reigns supreme, which is why the Lord of Darkness, Saturn, is exalted and lifted up, or in power, you could say. And what that means is that the sun, as the archetype of the individual that is on a heroic quest to do something for himself or herself, the individual that is the ego or the I or the hero that is going out into the world to claim success or victory somehow. Libra can often put that archetypal piece of ourselves on the back burner, and we can almost fall prey to thinking of ourselves last, and sort of putting the hero in the closet and saying, enough of you, hero. We got to think about anybody and everybody. What do they need? What does it feel like if I do this to them or say this to them? So Venus, the ruler of this sign of Libra, is very much connected with fairness, because we are simply putting our individuated positions a little bit secondary to kind of what's happening with people around us, a lot more than sometimes we normally do. Almost to a fault. If people with strong Libra placements, they do this almost to a fault. So fairness, what's fair? Big Libran theme with Venus in Libra, but also you throw Jupiter in the mix there. Wow, we're talking about justice. We're talking about the right treatment. How are people supposed to be treated? What's the truth around how people are supposed to be treated? So this can be an energy that we're much more concerned with how we treat others. What's the right way to treat other people? But it can also be that we get motivated or inspired to be aligned with a certain cause that we take up, right? A cause of justice or something like that. An advocacy for human rights or the rights of something or someone or a group or anything, right? It can be that kind of us carrying the torch and advocating on behalf of something or a cause that we feel is just and needs representation or something like that. It can also be very much something in the courts or in legal matters. Like, for instance, arbitration, where we work something out in a legal setting with lawyers or in a court or something like that, where we work something out. And it can just be out of court too. It can be kind of an arbitration with somebody that we have an issue with or something like that. Mediation and sentencing. Sentencing, like if you're a parent and you sort of have to play the role of that benefic Jupiter lawgiver that says, okay, you've messed up, kid, but here's your sentence. But I'm not going to be too hard on you because I want you to learn the lesson. It's more about your children becoming wiser. And so we can, as parents, if you have children, you know very much that your job is to provide that that structure and that law, right? That Libran, exalted Saturn kind of role is, you have to be strict sometimes. You have to be the lawgiver sometimes. But this is a lawgiver that isn't so much the tyrannical, Saturnine kind of rough around the edges, Saturn coming down hard on you with a punishment. This is like, I'm going to give you this lesson to learn. You may need some punishment, but it's going to be fair. It's like that saying, I'm strict, but I'm fair, or I'm just, but I'm the law, I'm the order, I'm the authority figure, but I'm also the benevolent provider of the boundaries for knowledge or safety or virtue or something like that, right? But that can be part of this as well. The narrative can come in where there is kind of like a time of arbitration, mediation, sentencing, but under a just lawgiver. Okay, and number 8 is going to be sexuality and the begetting of children. You could just say fertility, but in the ancient texts, the way, I forget who came up with this exact phrase. I think it might have been Vedius Valens. I forget exactly, but one of the ancient astrologers wrote it as the begetting of children is connected with the planet Jupiter. And of course, Venus is related to sexuality. So now this doesn't have to be strictly the carnal act of sexuality and getting pregnant, although it very much can be. It can also be something like success in getting pregnant. Like if you've been wanting to get pregnant, or even in finding somebody that can help you get pregnant, right? Somebody that knows the secret with anything from pregnancy to children is something that can come right now. So when I say sexuality and fertility, I'm really saying things are somehow fertile. They're ready to be, what's the word? They're ready to conceive. Like there's something about ready to reproduce, and it could be something not completely literal. Like it can be the reproduction of something very valuable, like learning about sexuality, right? Like learning what you like sexually or don't like sexually, or learning something different about your partner, or something involving sex, but isn't specifically about like getting pregnant and having sex or something like that. It very much can be, but it can also be kind of a way in which fertility is just in the air, and that can take a lot of different forms, even kind of an internal introspective form of things just being ripe and fertile and sort of leading to some kind of reproduction or fruiting that happens either now or even down the road, right? So it can have entering a good investment, right? Like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have this perfect thing that I'm going to invest in right now that is going to lead to something really, really good down the road. Even ideas that grow into resources down the road is something that might come about because we have a lot of this. We have Venus in an air sign, we have Jupiter in an air sign, we have the Sun square Jupiter between air and Earth. So you get the sense that this fertile quality that's just sort of in the air right now, it can lead to all kinds of things that down the road bear fruit, if you will. So it can also be something like creativity, that sexual energy that we use to create something, in art or music or etc. So sexuality and fertility is a big theme with Venus trine Jupiter. Okay, and number 9 is going to be reconciliations and mediation. Both of these words were words found in ancient texts that are connected with these two planets. So you have reconciliations, Venus, the planet that will mend a relationship, will say, you know what, I know we've had our differences. I know we've had our problems and our fights and our disagreements and things like that. But is there a way in which we can look past those and just resolve something and be friends again or whatever, right? Or get back together, like if you've been broken up with somebody and you get back together. And then, of course, like we were mentioning earlier, Jupiter is a planet that often is about mediation. It can be kind of like the courts where there's something goes into a space of let's work it out. So you get both of these planets coming together by positive aspect can often bring about a kind of, space where things can be worked out. And I think that's the main idea. It's affixing or addressing the tensions we have with other people, working it out with another person. Both parties coming to an agreement. Now, this could be to work on an issue, but just saying that both parties coming to an agreement is enough of a literal interpretation of Venus trine Jupiter. It could even be more than two parties, but whoever's involved, there's an agreement to come together and have something be settled somehow or agreed upon somehow. That's a big theme. But specifically, it can also be to work something out with another person you have an issue with, right? The settling of matters, or, examples like child support, alimony, loans, anything in a legal setting where it's like finally settled and it's agreed upon. That can be some part of this as well. Okay, number 10, last, is going to be, this one's a little bit more artistic. I like this one. It's big, beautiful sky that inspires the imagination and the mind. So with this one, I get an image of this big, beautiful, desert sky. Back when I was a long haul truck driver, I would have moments like this where I'm driving across the United States, and a lot of the central United States in particular is just unobstructed. There aren't mountains, there aren't hills, there aren't cities or buildings. The biggest obstruction a lot of places is these tall corn stalks that are kind of rising up. But you get these moments of like a sunset where there isn't anything obstructing the horizon. If you've ever been to a place like this, you'll know what I'm talking about. But no obstructions blocking the horizon, and the sky opens you up to possibility, right? One thing that's interesting, of course, Venus is connected with beauty. So you think about like the beauty of a sunset with all those beautiful oranges and pinks and almost like a neon kind of fiery. And that one color that's it's kind of like a grayish yellow. But all those beautiful colors, right? Venus, the beauty of something that we are coming into contact with. And then that expanded, unobstructed understanding or view, that Jupiter big outlook, big horizon, big sky. Jupiter in proto Germanic or Proto-European is actually, as Tom Rassel points out of Survive the Jive channel, he points out that Jupiter is a proto-god of the sky. He's literally a sky god. I think it's Jupiter is how he says it. But Jupiter originally in Jupiter's proto form was a sky god. So you think about this big, beautiful sky that is just unobstructed. And what does that do to the mind? Remember, this is happening in these air signs, right? This Venus trine Jupiter is happening in these two signs that are said to be connected with the element of air. And to me, that just puts you into a place where you're just opened up to the possibilities. Your imagination sort of is inspired by the beauty and the awe of something being open and beautiful and big. So I wonder if part of what people may be feeling in reflection to the astrology this week isn't just the way that you feel when you're sort of swept away by something big and beautiful that is like the sky in the desert, where it's just like, wow. And all of a sudden there's this feeling of hope or possibility or imagination or understanding. So I feel like psychologically that is kind of the context that hopefully a lot of us get to experience. Now, one thing that is interesting, let's go ahead and pull up the real-time clock one more time, is last week, of course, we had Mars moving into the sign of Cancer, which is a place where Mars is said to be fallen. So with Mars in Cancer right now, you could also see the archetypal narratives of how there is tension or conflict or fighting with lunar things, right? With family or within marriage or within health or anything lunar, right? There can be this difficult tension and conflict and inflammation of lunar types of things. So what's really great about this week is that it's nice that we get these really positive aspects between Venus and Jupiter making a trine with one another. And I feel like because they're both in these air signs, that I think that this is going to mitigate or soothe this Mars in Cancer a lot. So that's one good thing that is helping maybe the difficult areas in our lives out. But that is all 10 of the narratives to watch for as I see them. Hope you guys found this interesting and liked some of these. Let me know in the comments if you notice any of these. I would be really appreciative to see and hear your stories about how this week played out for you. And it helps me with my flashcards and everything like that as well, because I also like to see what happens with the people around me. And I'll be back again next week with another video. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you guys are safe and have a good one. Bye for now.